I pulled into my driveway, bone-tired from a weekend trip, but the sight of my house snapped me awake. My foot slammed the brakes, and my jaw dropped. Strangers, dozens of them, swarmed my backyard. White folding chairs dotted my pristine lawn. A floral arch draped in silk and roses stood by my patio, and guests in fancy dresses and tuxedos sipped champagne to the tune of a live band's soft, romantic music. The air carried the scent of high-end catering, and a three-tiered wedding cake sat smugly on my outdoor dining table. For a split second, I thought I'd driven to the wrong house. But no, this was my place, and these were definitely not my guests. Then I saw her, Vivian, the self-important HOA president who ruled the neighborhood like her personal fiefdom. She stood by the buffet table, chatting with guests as if she owned my backyard, hosting a wedding without a shred of permission. A slow, burning rage ignited in my chest. I threw my car into park and stepped out, heart pounding. I wasn't quick to anger, but this was a violation on a whole new level. A woman in a satin gown nearly collided with me, rushing toward the cake. "Oh, are you with the groom's side?" she asked, barely glancing before hurrying past. I clenched my jaw. No, I wasn't with the groom's side. I wasn't with anyone's side. This was my property, and these people were trespassing. Taking a deep breath, I marched into the chaos. Some guests noticed me, casting curious looks, but no one questioned my presence. I was just another face in the crowd. I made a beeline for Vivian, who was laughing at something a guest said, her voice light and carefree until she spotted me. Her smile faltered. "Oh, you're back early," she said, her tone shifting, though she tried to recover. "I assumed you'd be gone until tomorrow." I folded my arms. "Vivian," I said evenly, "why is there a wedding in my backyard?" She waved a dismissive hand. "Oh, don't make a fuss. My niece's venue canceled last minute, and we needed a replacement. You weren't using the space, and I figured you'd be fine with it." My fingers curled into fists. She figured I'd be fine with it? I took a slow breath, forcing a smile. "You know what, Vivian? You're right." She blinked, caught off guard. "Oh, well, good. I knew you'd understand." "I do understand," I cut in. "In fact, since we're throwing a party at my place, I should invite a few friends of my own." She had no idea what was coming, but she'd find out soon enough. Vivian stood there, smiling smugly, thinking she'd gotten away with it. The audacity, the sheer entitlement made my blood boil. She'd taken over my backyard, thrown a wedding on my property without permission, and expected me to nod politely and move on. Not a chance. I kept my expression neutral, nodding as if considering her excuse. "You know, Vivian, I completely understand," I said, voice calm. "Weddings are stressful. Last-minute cancellations are a nightmare. You had to find a solution." Vivian's face lit up with relief. "Exactly. That's all this is, a small favor. And really, what's the harm? The night will be over soon, and we'll clean up everything." I fought back a grin. Of course. But it's not fair for you to handle this alone." She tilted her head. "What do you mean?" I pulled out my phone, scrolling through my contacts. "Well, since you've opened my yard to guests, I figured I should invite a few of my own." Vivian's eyes narrowed, sensing something was off. "What kind of guests?" I pretended to think. "Oh, just some good friends. They love a good party." Before she could object, I tapped the call button and put the phone to my ear. It rang once, twice, then a deep, gravelly voice answered. "Yo." I smiled. "Razor, my man. How's it going?" A low chuckle came through. "Been a quiet day? What's up?" "Got a little situation at my place," I said, glancing at Vivian's increasingly pale face. "Big party, open bar, lots of food. Hate to enjoy it alone." A beat of silence. Then, "You inviting us?" I looked at Vivian, whose eyes were now wide. "Absolutely. Bring the whole crew." Razor chuckled again. "Oh, this is going to be fun. We'll be there in 15. I hung up and pocketed my phone, turning to Vivian with an innocent smile. "Problem?" Her mouth opened and closed, her brain scrambling. Who did you just call?" I shrugged. "Just some friends. Since this is a community event now, I figured everyone should enjoy it." The faint rumble of motorcycles in the distance was the only answer she needed. The first growl of approaching bikes was subtle, a low hum most guests didn't notice, too wrapped up in their champagne and chatter. But I heard it, and so did Vivian. She stiffened, eyes darting to the street. What was that?" she asked, voice tight. I smiled. Oh, sounds like my friends are here. The rumble grew louder. Heads turned. Guests exchanged confused glances, trying to pinpoint the noise. Then, one by one, the motorcycles appeared, a dozen bikers roaring down the street, leather jackets glinting in the late afternoon light. They weren't just riding. They were making a statement, engines revving as they rolled toward my house. The sound drowned out the band's soft music, making champagne glasses tremble on the buffet table. Vivian's face turned ghostly white. Oh my God! The guests froze, their elegant chatter dying as the first biker pulled into my driveway. It was Razor, a bear of a man with a thick beard, mirrored sunglasses, and a leather jacket covered in patches. He cut his engine, pulled off his helmet, and surveyed the scene with a smirk. Damn, he said, looking around. Fancy. Behind him, the other bikers parked in a neat, intimidating row. Some climbed off, stretching and cracking knuckles. Others sat, staring at the wedding guests with predatory amusement. Vivian was frozen, her mouth gaping like a fish out of water. The guests backed away slowly, clutching their drinks as if they'd offer protection. I stepped forward, grinning. Razor, glad you could make it. He clapped my shoulder. Wouldn't miss it. You said open bar. Vivian made a choking noise. What is happening? I turned to her, all innocence. Oh, Vivian, don't be rude. These are my friends. I gestured to the bikers, who were already making themselves at home. One grabbed a plate from the buffet, another nodded approvingly at the wedding cake, and a third inspected the floral decorations like he might pocket one. A bridesmaid gasped as a tattooed biker in a bandana grabbed a champagne flute and took a long sip. Not bad, he said, smacking his lips. Vivian was shaking. You can't just invite these people to a wedding. I folded my arms. Oh, I thought we were just sharing my backyard. Razor turned to Vivian, his grin widening. Don't worry, lady. We love a good wedding. Vivian looked like she might collapse. The wedding guests stood petrified, their whispers now laced with panic. The bride and groom gaped at the new arrivals, the groom looking ready to bolt. Meanwhile, the bikers were having a blast. Razor piled a plate high with food, eyeing the roasted chicken like it was a treasure. Tank, a massive guy with tattoos snaking up both arms, plopped into a white folding chair, making it groan under his weight. Another biker casually picked up a centerpiece, twirling the delicate flowers before tossing them over his shoulder like weeds. Vivian finally found her voice. You have to make them leave, she hissed, panic creeping in. They're ruining the wedding. I gave her a wide-eyed look. Oh, you didn't seem concerned about my property being used without permission. What's the problem, Vivian? I thought we were sharing. She made a strangled noise, gesturing wildly at the bikers. This is different. These people don't belong here. At that moment, Razor, chewing on a piece of wedding cake, wiped his mouth and turned to her. These people, he repeated, voice deceptively light. Vivian's eyes darted between me and the dozen leather-clad men settling into my backyard. She was trapped, and she knew it. If she demanded my guests leave, she'd have to admit she had no permission to host the wedding here. If she argued, she'd have to explain why her guests were welcome, but mine weren't a conversation she couldn't win in front of this crowd. Her breath came in short, panicked gasps. I leaned in, voice low so only she could hear. You've got two choices, Vivian. 1, tell your guests the wedding's over and system, and leave my property immediately. 2, you let the party continue with my guests included. Your call. Vivian opened and closed her mouth, sweat beading on her forehead. With a defeated exhale, she turned to the bride and groom, her voice trembling. We need to wrap this up now. The bride looked furious. Are you kidding? This is my wedding. But Vivian was already waving her hands at the guests. Thank you all for coming, but we're having some unforeseen issues. Please grab your things and start heading out. The guests didn't argue, they were already spooked by the bikers and eager to leave. Within minutes, the wedding party scattered, hurriedly packing up decorations, food, and chairs. Razor, watching the chaos unfold, chuckled. Well, that was fun. I smirked. Drinks on me back at the clubhouse. He grinned. Now that's an invitation we'll take. As the last of Vivian's guests fled my property, I watched her slink away, her face a mix of humiliation and rage. She didn't say a word as she hurried off, defeated. I let out a satisfied sigh, my lawn finally mine again.